Expected across parts of the Northeast. Meanwhile, we've got issues in Chicago at this early hour. We've already had a couple of ground stops. In fact, we still have one going at O'Hare. Midway should have been expired at 15 past the hour, but you can see everywhere else we've got green on the map, meaning we're good to fly. No delays at this early hour. But for Chicago, definitely check ahead on your flight. Light rain is in progress right now. You've got 74 degrees. Visibility actually not too bad around O'Hare, but we have had some very heavy thunderstorms pushing in from the western side. And also Midway, we're checking on you guys as well. We're at 75. We have some thunderstorms here as well. That ground stop supposedly goes until 6:15 Central Time, so we'll keep an eye on those. But east of Chicago is where the nasty, severe thunderstorm warnings are. These storms are moving toward the east and southeast at about 30 or 35 miles an hour. In fact, one of these in northwestern Indiana has a possible tornado tag on it, seeing a little bit of rotation within that storm. This one is Lake and Porter counties. It goes until 5:45. Notice the tag here, tornado possible around Valparaiso. So definitely seek shelter if you live in this area, regardless of whether a tornado forms or not. There could be some very strong winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. We've also got a severe warning here in southwestern Michigan, Berrien and Cass counties under a severe warning till 6:45 Eastern time. Again, pushing east at about 30 miles an hour. This whole area in the red zone prone to thunderstorms today. Some of them really packing a punch. So this morning's round is just round number one. Later today, we could see big hail coming out of these storms. Jordan, we're talking about, possibly tennis ball size hail with these storms.
We had some.
I think people looking forward to a cool down.
We're all
counting down to football season. I saw the Halloween decorations in the store.
Already?
So people are already thinking ahead to the cooler time of year, but we got to get through this first. We got the heat advisories, the excessive heat warnings in effect on the map behind me, stretching from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way into the D.C. area where we actually have an excessive heat warning in effect. So temperatures will be feeling like the triple digits, even though the number on your thermometer may be around 93 or 94 degrees. The humidity tells the story as well. When it's this humid out, you've got all that moisture surrounding you, it's difficult for your body to cool down efficiently. So that makes it even tougher for people who have to work outdoors, even just running errands and doing back to school shopping. You're going to be dealing with some serious heat out there today. And this is your heat index for today. A lot of triple digit readings from Cincinnati on over towards D.C., Richmond, Virginia, even the 95 corridor up towards New York City and Boston. Cold front coming down will give us some relief by the end of again, but it will give us also the chance for some stronger thunderstorms as we head into Saturday afternoon. Flash flooding is also going to be a possibility from New England down through the mid-Atlantic and especially the high country of western North Carolina, so watch out there. Tomorrow, we already start to feel that cool down across upstate New York, the Adirondacks, over into northern New England. The dew points come down as well, which is great news. We'll feel less humidity and meaning you can open up the windows and enjoy some fresh, cool air for a change. Well, getting through this week's brutal heat is... Welcome back. Let's get you to your destination safely on this Friday. Thanks to Subaru, we're going to check on some of those trouble spots. And indeed, they have been stretching from the Midwest and even into portions of the South. You can see the green on the map representing where storms are likely. Milwaukee down to Chicago. In fact, we've already had ground stops at both airports in Chicago. Watch out for some ponding on the roadways. This rain is very heavy. The wind is intense. And there could even be a couple of isolated tornadoes to go along with the severe weather that we're following right now in northwestern Indiana. Showers and storms from Indiana into the Cincinnati area as well, so definitely be careful with the wet roadways. There's that one ground stop for O'Hare. It does go until 7:30 Eastern or 6:30 Central. Thunderstorms in progress, 73 degrees right now at O'Hare. You can see the storms kind of coming in from the western side of town, so those flights who are trying to get into Chicago airspace are being held at their origin airports. You can see the severe weather that's ongoing, southwestern Michigan, northwestern Indiana, especially where those storms are looking pretty nasty. In fact, a tornado possible tag on this particular warning for Porter County in Indiana, including the Chesterton area. Watch out for some wild wind and the possibility of a tornado with some velocity showing some movement in the air in a circular fashion. And there's another warning there in southwestern Michigan for Berrien and Cass County, mainly high wind, and these storms are moving toward the east at about 30 to 35 miles an hour. So damaging wind is likely. And it's not just this morning, Chicago. We could see additional storms later today, and you can see stretching all the way back into eastern parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. All right, let's take a look at South Bend, see what's going on there and of South Bend. So pretty nasty storms indeed. We want you guys to stay safe and get to your place safely.
What a cool sunrise, though.
Heat or storms be a factor with any of those evening games going on today. MLB action. We've got the Kansas City Royals taking on the Minnesota Twins. This game at 7:10 Central Time. You can see right around the 8th or 9th inning, or perhaps your ride home may be impacted by some isolated storms, but hopefully they get that game in no problem. The heat in St. Louis, it is on as the Cardinals take on the Chicago Cubs. Even after the sun sets for this evening game, it is still going to be in the low 90s and feeling even warmer and more uncomfortable when you factor in that humidity. So factor that into how you dress, of course, for the game. Baltimore Orioles are taking on the New York Yankees, and this first pitch at 7:05. And right about that time, we may be okay. It's later on in the game when we could see some isolated storms moving on in. Some golf action going on in Blaine, Minnesota. Looks good as we go throughout the weekend. Still to come on America's Morning Headquarters, warmer waters. All right, welcome back. I know it's July 28th. We're used to the heat this time of the year, but even for places like the Southwest, the desert, it has been abnormally hot for so many days in a row. And we've got the advisories and the excessive heat warnings that stretch from the mid-Atlantic and Northeast all the way down into the Midwest and parts of the South as well. That means it's just too tough to take on our bodies, especially for outside for any extended period of time. And even going into the weekend, this pattern really doesn't change a whole lot for most of us. However, the Northeast will feel a little bit of a break with a front coming through. But your heat temperatures, your actual temperatures are going to be right around 100 degrees in St. Louis. Your average high, 90. So we're 10 degrees above that. You have to factor in the humidity, though, because all that moisture surrounding you can really make it tough to cool down. And this is what it's going to feel like when you step outside in the middle of the afternoon. 104 in Nashville, 105 Jackson, Mississippi, 98 in Atlanta. Really tough for the landscapers, people who make the deliveries. You know, I saw some roofers out there. I don't know how they do it in this kind of heat. It is really rough. So please watch for these symptoms. Heat exhaustion, you start to feel a little dizzy, a little lightheaded as well. Your pulse becomes weak and you get those muscle cramps. That's really a sign your body is telling you to take a break and get into the air conditioning, drink lots of cool water. Throbbing headache when you have no sweating at all. That's the danger zone. That means heat stroke is happening, rapid, strong pulse, and that could lead to the loss of consciousness and even death, unfortunately. So follow these tips right here. I know every summer we tell you, just a reminder, slow it down. You know, don't do that exercise in the middle of the afternoon. Do it early in the morning or later in the evening. Stay hydrated, eat light, cool foods. Use the air conditioning. If you don't have AC, head to the library, head to the mall. A lot of good movies in the theater you can check out as well. And please check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, the frail, the sick, you know, because sometimes there are medications that they're on. They may not even know that they're in trouble with the heat. Temperatures tomorrow, more of the same. From Des Moines down towards Nashville, 97 degrees, 97 in D.C. It's also going to be quite warm for you. Our average high should be around 90 degrees. But notice the millions of us who are above 95 degrees. Steph, we do see that number tick down a little bit, but especially by Sunday when the Northeast starts to feel the effects of that cold front.
Finally, right? At least some people.
Today is the day to be weather aware. More than 40 million of you are at risk for severe storms, and that does include major metros like Chicago and Detroit for the second time this week. How it could impact your commute, your day at the beach, perhaps the camps, and even school for kids. They're going back next week, as a matter of fact. Plus, it's not just the storms, it is the heat. We are well into the triple digits all the way from the southwest into the southeast. How to stay safe and the cool down that's on the horizon, at least for some of you, not everyone, though. This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Kelly Cass, alongside meteorologist Jordan Steele and Stephanie Abrams. Meteorologist Lynette Charles will also be joining us live from St. Louis this morning on the dangerous heat that is gripping the Midwest. But Steph, let's begin with what happened yesterday in the Northeast. Jordan, now to the major heat in the Midwest, topping out at 100 degrees yesterday in places like St. Louis, where an excessive heat warning is in effect, and residents are talking about those triple-digit temperatures. It has been really hot. And in fact, I actually looked up, whether the Arch has air conditioning or not. It does have AC. The Tram, maybe not as good. So just keep that in mind. We've got a game going on tonight in St. Louis as well. And even after the sun sets, we're still going to be in the 90s in a place like St. Louis. All the pink on this map represents excessive heat warnings. You got the red that extends over toward the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast where we've got heat advisories in effect. So we're advising you to take it easy, take lots of water breaks, especially if you work outdoors. The dew point's not helping us either. This is your humidity. We've got to factor that in because your body cannot cool down efficiently when you're surrounded by all that moisture in the air. So your high temperatures themselves will be well into the 90s for a place like Cincinnati, Charleston, West Virginia. You tack on the humidity, and this is what you need to prepare for and dress for. 110 is what it's going to feel like in Cincinnati, 101 in Charleston, West Virginia. Look at D.C. and Richmond. We're going to be well into the triple digits, especially during the middle of the afternoon, which is the time of day you really want to avoid being outside for any extended period of time. If you're doing any traveling on the 95 corridor, even tomorrow, it's going to be hot. Make sure you've got good tires. Make sure your car's in good working order. You do not want to get stranded in this kind of heat. The humidity is still going to be with us tomorrow, even into Saturday. We bring a front through, though. That will mean thunderstorms, but also a drop in the humidity. Up in the temperatures, too. It's going to feel so much better as we head towards Sunday and into early next week as well. Monday and Tuesday, temperatures dropping by a good 10, 15 degrees. So a place like D.C., our average high, 90. We're going to be well above that today, even tomorrow with those thunderstorms moving through. But then after the front, here comes those cooler temperatures, in fact, going below average, below the 90-degree average. For St. Louis, our average high, also 90 degrees. We're going to be in the triple digits as we head through this afternoon, 96 for tomorrow. Your storms come through Sunday morning, and then a bit of a cool down as we head through Monday and Tuesday. Well, big heat in the... All right, turn around, don't drown. We've got some heavy rain causing some flooding in some areas. We've also had some very strong wind blowing through the Chicago area with even severe warnings occasionally for parts of Illinois and Indiana. We still have a ground stop at O'Hare for another 10 minutes or so. That one goes until the bottom of the hour. It is 72 presently right over Chicago. You can see that line moving past the Windy City. We're going to take a look at Chicago right now and show you the conditions there, because then again, later today, we'll likely see more storms erupting across northern Illinois and Indiana. There are your storms that are moving pretty quickly across Indiana, occasionally turning severe, but right now no warnings. You can see the heavy rain moving past South Bend, moving towards Rochester, Indiana. We've had occasional warnings up towards Berrien and Cass counties in Michigan, but that has been allowed to expire. Other storms approaching Indianapolis, and you can see Lafayette, Indiana, dealing with some of that heavy rain right now, some intense lightning as well. As we take you in to show you the rainfall amounts, Doppler estimates right along the Indiana-Ohio state line. That yellow indicates anywhere from 3 to 5 inches. Again, Doppler radar is estimating this, but there could be some ponding on the roads at the very least. There could even be some barricades, so make sure you find another way to get around it. Severe storms are still likely today. Even though we're getting rocked this morning, we do expect more generation of storms as we head towards this evening. So expect evening delays, Sioux Falls to Mason City, Madison, Wisconsin, right on down towards Chicago. Yet again, you're in that red zone for the potential of severe weather, and even flooding is going to be a possibility around Detroit, Ann Arbor, the Big House. We've got a flood watch in effect, and you can see how it plays out for Detroit. We're pretty good for most of the start of today, but then by the afternoon and evening, that's when we start to see some of these bigger cells arriving here in the Motor City. Yellows and oranges indicating the worst of the weather, some of that kind of lingering into the overnight hours, Steph.
Well, scorching heat is...
And into the state of Michigan, Kelly. It's going to be a busy night.
Are you a fan of water rides?
Oh, of course.
Today is National Water Park Day.
Oh, really?
So that's going to be ideal, right?
I like the ones where you're in
the
and then the floor drops out and you tank down.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, but it's
fun. I
think
waiting in line for some of those popular rides is going to be rough in the heat and the humidity. But yes, the water parks will be popular when you've got excessive heat warnings and heat advisories that extend from basically the Midwest into the Northeast. The dew points are high. Basically, that means you've got a lot of moisture surrounding you, so your body can't cool off as efficiently. That means your your actual temperatures in the 90s are going to feel even hotter, more like the triple digits from Cincinnati to Charleston, West Virginia. Look at D.C. feeling like 108. So a good day for getting inside the museums, taking in a little history and some education right before the kids go back to school in a few weeks. You've got a cold front coming through. That will trigger the chance for severe storms, especially here in the mid-Atlantic, but also New York City up towards Hartford, Connecticut. But the good news is we get some cooler, drier air behind the front. Now, traveling through it is going to be a little rough between tomorrow and Sunday. There is that possibility of some flash flooding. The ground already saturated in many towns and cities. But this is your reward. We're going to start to see that cooler air working into the Finger Lakes region, the Adirondacks, over toward the Green Mountains of Vermont. The dew points will also be dropping, which means cooler, drier air basically sets up shop here for Sunday and even into early next week. Those highs 10 to 15 degrees cooler. Well, getting through this week's brutal. Good morning. Let's get going on this Friday morning. Perhaps a last-minute getaway for the weekend before the kids head back to school. Yes, some districts go back to school next week. Subaru is going to help us out and show you where we could have some issues when it comes to the roadways from the Midwest all the way down into the Mid-South. That's where we have the better chance for the showers, the thunderstorms. And we've already had some strong ones in Chicago. Earlier this morning, we had a ground stop at both O'Hare and Midway. But thankfully, you know, that has been lifted. So things are getting a little bit better, but that doesn't mean we can't get stronger thunderstorms later this afternoon and this evening. Showers and storms already going in parts of Indiana, moving into Ohio, a place like Cincinnati. Not just wet roads, there could be some ponding on some of the roads as well. So turn around, don't drown. You can see a brand new severe warning just coming out now here in northwestern Indiana. Chicago, the weather is improving. Still some light rain at both the airports, but there is a brand new severe warning here in northwestern Indiana, just to the east of Kankakee, which is in Illinois, of course. We're going to take a closer look at that warning because it's brand new. We've got Jasper, Lake, and Newton counties in the severe warning going until 7:15 local time. Radar indicating perhaps some strong winds as the storm is approaching a place like Roselawn. So hopefully everything is put away on your lawn and you are not having to go anywhere anytime soon. Strong damaging winds, a likelihood in a place like Chicago. In fact, anywhere, Jordan, in this red, we could see delays as well as severe weather.
Yeah, and
Yes, it is late July, but it's hot even for the desert in the Southwest. A prolonged heat wave for places like Phoenix and Tucson. We continue to have the heat there. We also have excessive heat warnings showing up in the Midwest and even parts of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, D.C., Baltimore. It's going to be feeling like 108 to 110 today. So it's especially dangerous for those of us who work outdoors, you know, delivery workers, those of you working on lawns and gardens. And it is just really, really tough. So seek out the air conditioning. Get those breaks when you can, and make sure you have plenty of water. It's always a good idea to have some frozen water with you in the car. That way, as you're traveling, it melts and you have some drinking water, nice and cold. There are your heat indices. This is what you need to dress for. Lightweight, light color clothing. That's really the best way to go if you've got to be out in the afternoon here in Nashville, where it's going to be feeling like the triple digits. Now, heat exhaustion is something that could set in. Some of the symptoms include, you know, when you start to get the excessive sweating, the lightheaded feeling, also nausea, vomiting. You really need to take a break when that happens. Muscle cramping can also set in, and that's heat exhaustion, but it's even worse when it comes to heat stroke. This is what sends people to the hospital, and unfortunately, this is when you could lose your life. So throbbing headaches, no sweating occurs at all, red, dry skin, nausea, vomiting, rapid, strong pulse, and you could lose consciousness. So make sure you are checking on your neighbors, especially your elderly neighbors. They may be on medications that, you know, can really mess with their bodies in terms of cooling off in this type of heat. Also, you know, as I mentioned, get in the cool places, you know, especially during the afternoon. Drink plenty of water, eat light foods. Also, the air conditioning, and you can see we want you to check on the elderly, the sick people as well, and they may need help responding to that heat. Even the fans are not really going to help you very much, and unfortunately at night our temperatures are not dropping a whole lot either, so we're not getting much relief at all. It's day in, day out. So tomorrow it's more the same, especially right here in the Midwest. You've got temperatures well into the triple digits. Those are your actual numbers, by the way. A place like St. Louis should be 90. We're 10 degrees above that. This is your population above 95, though. Notice how we're pretty high today. Tomorrow we do drop it down, Steph, by Sunday, but more importantly, the humidity starts to go down as well, especially in the
That will be huge, and we've
Today, another day to be weather aware. More than 40 million people at risk for severe storms. You see that in the red zone. It does include major cities like Chicago and Detroit for the second time this week. How it could impact your commutes, your day at the beach, perhaps some after-school practices or camps for your kids. Plus, you know, it's not just the storms. We are going to talk about the heat, too. It is going to be in the triple digits for a huge section of the country, stretching from the southwest all the way into the northeast. How to stay safe and the cool down. It's on the horizon, at least for some of you, not all, though. This is America's Morning Headquarters. Thank you for joining us. I'm meteorologist Kelly Cass, alongside meteorologist Jordan Steele and Stephanie Abrams. Meteorologist Lynette Charles will also join us live from the heat in St. Louis. She's going to talk more about that dangerous heat, Steph, plus the humidity. It is just brutal to be outside.
It is, and some of that heat
break, others do not. So, yes, we're going to talk about the good news, bad news situation. But another tip for you, I was shopping with my daughter the other day, back to school shopping, and the seats inside the car got so hot. Make sure you have a towel or something that you can lay down on the seat. Be careful even touching the steering wheel. Blazing hot inside those vehicles. And always check the back seat, by the way. When you're dealing with this kind of heat, it can be deadly. And you can see the heat advisories, excessive heat warnings that are in effect for millions of us, stretching from the Midwest Ohio Valley all the way into the Northeast, where dew points are high. This is the measure of moisture in the atmosphere. When you've got a dew point of 76 in D.C., that's a lot of humidity surrounding your body. You're not able to cool off as efficiently, and therefore that 97 degrees today in D.C. is going to feel more like 108. That's what you need to prepare for. 108 in Richmond. It's going to feel like 110 degrees here in the Queen City of Cincinnati. 101 in Charleston, West Virginia. The 95 corridor still bakes tomorrow, especially with that urban heat island effect. The cities tend to get warmer than the outlying areas with all that concrete and pavement. But there's your cooler air on the horizon, starting out in the Finger Lakes region up towards Fort Ticonderoga, the Green Mountains of Vermont. You get a nice feel to the air as we head toward the end of the weekend. Now we'll be paying for that with thunderstorms, especially on your Saturday. But by Monday, lower dew points, lower temperatures by as much as 5 to 15 degrees. Look at the 70s showing up here on the map. So that is just glorious, especially giving our AC a little bit of a break, perhaps, especially at night. We can open up the windows and let in some fresh air. For D.C., the average high for us on this late July day is 90 degrees. We are going well above that. Remember, the heat index is even higher than that. 96 with the storms coming through. We get the cold front passing, and therefore cooler than average temperatures down into the low to mid 80s. So a refreshing change. St. Louis, where Lynette Charles is, average high for us is 90 degrees. We're going to drop it down as we head into the start of next week as well. Back to New York City, of course, the big... Happy Friday, everyone. Let's get you to your destination safely. If you're traveling through Chicago, you may be held up a little bit, though. Another ground stop in effect for O'Hare, not so much Midway. And even though the storms have passed us by, they are holding traffic, trying to get into O'Hare right now with the showers and storms now east of Chicago. But you can see it's still lightly raining. Temperature currently 73 degrees. And we do have a little bit of a wind out there, so perhaps maybe a wind shift is causing us some problems at O'Hare. You see that line pushing through Indiana. We've recently had some warnings along that line. As of right now, the warnings have gone away, but we do see some heavy rain pushing into the suburbs on the west side of Indianapolis. South Bend, we've had quite the stormy morning as well, up towards Berrien and Cass counties in southwestern Michigan, where earlier we did have some severe weather. Watch these showers kind of circling in on the Circle City here of Indianapolis. Some of these storms could be rather strong. Watch out for the dangerous lightning as well. And later today, there's the possibility for even more severe weather, and therefore expect evening delays. Guys, over to you.
Well, we know the heat is
off. It doesn't matter what the temperature is.
Oh, yeah. Love me some s'mores. A bonfire, of course, a great way to get together with your friends and family for the weekend. We want to have a look at your bonfire forecast presented by Hershey's S'mores. We've got a good one here for you. This is Grand Forks in North Dakota, where temperatures, oh, so nice, right? In the 70s, while the rest of the country has been sweltering. So a nice break to head there. Now we've got Buffalo, New York, where by the end of the weekend, things will be cooling down for us as well with lower humidity. But through this evening, it's actually not going to be too bad with those mid and upper 70s. And here we have Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful mountain city in the western side of the state. It's going to be a little warm, a little muggy. Can't rule out a few isolated storms over your bonfire.
the overnight hours this evening.
Meanwhile, some of us want a cloud, a raindrop, anything to cool us off.
Anything to cool us down.
It is really brutal out there, Jordan. Today happens to be National Water Parks Day. Maybe you're heading out to the theme park. Water rides are going to feel pretty good, but the long lines waiting to get to those popular ones might be a little rough out there. We've got excessive heat warnings in effect in the pink, including portions of the mid-Atlantic coast, by the way. Heat advisories for places like New York City, even back towards Louisville. Temperatures are going to feel like the triple digits. So I know it's late July 28th, but when you factor in the humidity, it's going to make it so much worse and therefore dangerous. We can't cool off efficiently when we're surrounded by all this humidity and moisture. So these are your actual numbers on the thermometer for your highs today. 90 in Detroit, 94 in Cincinnati, 93 degrees in Charleston. Watch what happens when you factor in that humidity. It's going to feel even worse, like 105 in Cincinnati, and that's typically around 2 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon when you've got the worst of the heat to deal with. There is some front on the way. It's going to give us a little bit of a break from the heat and humidity, at least for those of us in upstate New York and parts of the New England area. But we will have to pay the price with severe weather along that cold front. You can see the red on the map stretching from Hartford, New York City, down towards D.C. There's not only a severe threat, but a flash flood threat. But hey, temperatures are going down. We're finally going to sweep out some of that humidity as well, so those overnight temperatures will be a little bit more comfortable. Well, more storms and brutal heat scorching the country with excessive heat alerts in the Midwest. Happy Friday, everyone. Let's get you traveling from point A to point B and hopefully no delays in between. But we have had already 2 ground stops in Chicago, O'Hare, even Midway earlier had a ground stop. You can see the showers and storms that affected us in the Windy City, just some light rain now, but the heaviest weather certainly moving across the heart of Indiana right now, southwestern Michigan. And these storms could still be rather strong, maybe not quite meeting severe criteria, but perhaps some winds of 40 to 50 miles an hour. Those storms are closing in on the downtown area of Indianapolis right now. You see the oranges and the reds on our radar indicating some of the heavier downpours along with some lightning too. Then we head up towards South Bend. We've got some moderate rain going on for you. Fort Wayne, we are about to get hit with a thunderstorm moving in from the west side. Once again, there's still a ground stop for O'Hare, not Midway, but O'Hare. That means planes at the other airports that are trying to get into Chicago are being held at their origin. You've got 73 cloudy skies. The rain has let up, but the ground stop has been extended through 8:15 Central Time. Strong winds are still possible. I know you might think we already had storms this morning. Well, there's more later that could also bring us some problems with downed trees and power lines. We still have thousands without power, by the way, in Michigan after all the storms we had yesterday. There's your red zone. It's a lot of you here stretching from the Corn Belt into the Great Lakes region. That darker red especially is where severe winds are likely. Can't rule out isolated tornadoes, but also there will be some ponding on the roadways. Expect delays for your evening commute. Over here in Florida, we had some flooding yesterday in South Florida. In fact, it was a rainy time for Fort Lauderdale, over 6 inches in some areas. More thunderstorms are possible with gusty winds, and be careful traveling, especially in South Florida with more flooding possible. Guys, over to you.
We're continuing our travel series.
It's going to be dripping down your arm very, very quickly in that kind of heat. We do have the excessive heat warnings, not just where Lynette is, there by the Arch in St. Louis, but stretching all the way over towards D.C. That's the pink, the red on this map, heat advisories. And we know it's late July. It typically is hot this time of year, but this is an elevated threat because for so many of you, we've been dealing with this day in, day out. Even our overnight temperatures are not getting very cool either, especially in the Phoenix area. So you can see temperatures today pushing 100. These are the actual numbers on the thermometer. 95 in Atlanta after achieving 97 yesterday, our hottest day of the year so far. And you'll notice back toward the central and southern plains, we are still well into the triple digits. You got to tack on the humidity. This is what it's going to feel like out there. Lots of triple digits from St. Louis up towards Des Moines. But check out D.C. It's going to feel like 108. So good day to take advantage of those air-conditioned museums, maybe learn a little something, maybe head back to school shopping, at some of the malls as well. If you're starting to feel lightheaded, that is just one sign that you could be dealing with heat exhaustion, excessive sweating, nausea, vomiting. You definitely need to seek medical attention when you see some of these symptoms like the muscle cramps. Heat stroke is even worse, though. This is when it can become deadly, throbbing headache, no sweating at all, so your skin is not even working in this situation. You've got nausea, vomiting, rapid, strong pulse, and you could lose consciousness. So unfortunately, this does lead to deaths. We've already seen some hot car deaths this year, too, so make sure you check the back seat before you lock up the vehicle. Other tips right here make sense, right? Make sure you take it easy, drink plenty of water, eat light foods, use the air conditioning, and check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, especially with those medications. Sometimes, Steph, they might need a little more help. They may not realize that that they're in trouble.
Yeah, that is true. And